Okay,
So,
I'd like to call this meeting to order. Could everybody stand for the pledge, please? I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, Erica, could you do roll call, please? Okay, board, you have an agenda in front of you. Are there any changes that would need to be made to it? No? No changes. Could I have a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
I'll support.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, the agenda is approved 7-0. First up is, Jessica's not, oh my gosh, sorry. Next up under 5 is reports. A, community input. Is there anybody for community input? Okay. So we'll move on to 6, business items for discussion. So first up is A, the cooperative softball with Hackett.
So we received Mike's proposal already, and I
I did bring that through.
did have one. Thank you.
Hey there.
Okay, so you all received Mr. Woodard's proposal about developing a cooperative or going into a cooperative with Hackett. And I did ask him to come, maybe give a brief overview, answer any questions that you might have. You're up, Mike.
So the overview, pretty much in here, but one thing just to be upfront about, we're saying that this is what we want to do. At any time, Hackett could pull the plug on it as well. So, for example, some of the things that I had in here last week about practicing that's on there. Now they're saying, well, we might want to have some of the practice at Hackett. So there's some things that would have to really be worked out. This is a last minute proposal. As I stated, it is past the deadline, but the MHFA has granted us some flexibility to try to make it happen. The reason it's past the deadline is it kind of just, we tried last year, we thought we had some momentum with it, and then we didn't get a response. We tried again this fall and didn't really get a response, and then all of a sudden a couple weeks ago I finally got a response back, and it was like, wow, this is really late. So I think it's going to be important to understand that if we don't do this, we are going to only have one team. So we'd have a varsity team this year, and we'll be really low in numbers for even varsity team. I asked the coaches to give me a ballpark. In worst case scenario, and this is from having communication with some of the players, the ones that play at Quad City, worst case scenario, we wouldn't even have enough for one team. They said as low as 8. Best case scenario is probably 12. So 12 total, not 12 on varsity, 12 on JV. Every year in the past, Coach Marasco has recruited heavily prior to the season, and so he's always been able to get 3, 4, 5 extra girls out to make it work for JV varsity. But even if he was able to recruit 3 or 4 this year, we don't have enough for people. So looking at the top part, the agreement is a 2-year deal. So after 2 years, we can renew if both schools agree upon it. The program would have to be approved by you guys, our board, and also Hackett's board. And then our league has to give their blessing, which is a rubber stamp, so that won't be an issue at all. The enrollment part, number 5, doesn't really hurt us in softball. Other sports it could. So if we combine, let's say in wrestling with another school that bump us up a division, which would be tough. But in this one, we should probably stay the same division as that. Any questions on the first part, 1 through 6?
It's not 1 through 6, but I have a question.
Yeah.
I think you kind of answered, but I just want to make sure. So
we only have 8 to 12 players, that means that all of our players will play either JV or varsity.
We would have a varsity team, and then anybody that's out for softball would be on the varsity.
Okay, so any of our GA players though that try out make a team,
If we have a cooperative,
if we have a cooperative.
they will be on a team, yes,
Yes.
JV or varsity,
Okay.
yes.
Okay.
So that would be the goal is, what they're telling me is that they have 8 to 10 players. So if we even had a low 8, that's going to give us 16, and I'm sure Mr. Marasco will find a couple more. Last year we had a JV varsity, but we were not full strength. So what I had to do is I had to schedule JV games on opposite nights, and some of the girls that were on the varsity, maybe not because of talent, but because they had to, were able to go down and play some JV games and get experience. We had the JVs enough to play, and then other nights those girls moved out there to the varsity enough to play. So I could see that. If we had 16, let's say, 18, you're not going to have 2 full JV varsity teams, but we would do like what we did last year.
I have one other question. You said it's a 2-year agreement. If in those 2 years our numbers grew, are we stuck in this agreement with them, or can we back out?
Or 2
Okay.
Yeah, so if we all of a sudden had 20 girls come out next year, we're still in the program.
But we would find a place for all of those girls on the team.
Yeah, I mean, baseball, softball, you know, there's always going to be issues about playing time, but we've had a baseball team several years ago, we only had varsity, we could have had 19 or 21 kids. So, yeah, so there wouldn't be any cuts in the program.
Thank you.
I have a quick question, Mike. So for making the decision at 2 years, when would we make that decision
So
to renew?
So the deadline to start one or now would be renew is actually October 15th. So the decision to renew it, if we were going to, would have to be before October 15th. So I would think we would go after year 2, spring season ends. We should know then what we're looking at.
And I assume it makes, I mean, because at this point we're looking at 4 grades. So to bump up a lot, you'd have to have a lot of kids from one grade that are playing. So it really, the 2 years is probably the length of time it would take to get like a new group.
Yeah, so
Can come in.
what we've been told, this is going back to last year, there are 2 freshman girls that played softball last year in the Quad City League. Only 2. So they're going to be the next 4 years going through with just 2. So even if this current 8th grade has 10, you know, now you have 12 in a 2 class.
When does Hackett Board get this?
Their principal was also their athletic director. I asked them how's their setup with the board. Do they have monthly meetings like this? And it didn't sound like they necessarily had set meetings. So he said he would just have to go to the board president or whatever, and he would. So he knows if we had November 2nd is the deadline.
With that in mind, has he gotten approval from them?
No. So, and this is where I was going to get at, where like how things can change, and when you're trying to throw things together at the last minute, you really try to be really on the same page. And when him and I talked, you know, I said, well, if we do this, we need to be here most of the time. We don't have the community that can drive kids to Hackett every day for practice, things like that. What I would like, maybe a few times during the season, if we get approval to send them over on a bus for a practice. That way we're not making Hackett come to us all the time. But like in the regular season, once the game started, let's say we play on a Tuesday, Monday would be a big day to get together as an entire group. So the varsity teams would be practicing together on a Monday, JV on a Monday, they play on a Tuesday, let's say. And let's say they don't play again until Friday, then maybe at Wednesday practice, you just at your own school. And they would have a coach, we have a coach, our girls would do batting practice and fundamentals, same as what they would do. So it wouldn't be the importance of mock coverages and relays from the outfield and all that. It would just be practicing softball, you know, in your individual skills. It would eliminate them having to drive here every day. But like I said in the beginning, when I first talked to him, he made us out, and their coach did, that we could come to you. and that changed. So I'm assuming parents are probably starting to say, wait a minute, get the driver every day. So those are the things that can throw a real wrinkle into it. And, tomorrow he could tell me, hey, it's not going to work. So we would have to have an understanding that, or they would have to have an understanding that we are the home base. He's already said that they were okay with wearing our uniforms. Our coach would be the varsity coach, their coach would be the JV coach.
I have one more question, and maybe you're getting to this. But at what point will we, like if we vote to approve it, and then Hackett comes back and changes some of, what we're looking at, like they want us to go there multiple times, or they don't end up voting to approve it, we can then back out of it at some point. We're able to do that.
Oh, yeah, I mean, we have to, there's an application we send to the NCAA. So if we don't sign off on that, then we don't
Okay.
have to deal with it. I think you guys have to understand going into it, we probably have to be somewhat flexible and be willing to provide, transportation a couple times a week to send our team over to practice.
So I have a question. Why wouldn't our kids be able to drive over there if we drive to practice here?
Well, primarily because the varsity would be here. So our coach would be the varsity coach, and their coach would be the JV coach. So if they practice, if there's any practice going on over there, the majority of them would be JV practices. So we're talking about freshmen and sophomores. If it is a varsity practice, then, again, there's more that can drive. Then it comes down to how the company feel if we're school's out and we're sending high school kids to drive to a practice.
If they drive to practice here.
I know, yeah, I know.
It's just a difference.
So, but under opportunities and obstacles on the back page, that's, the numbers is an obvious one. If we don't have enough players, we're forcing, so like take those two girls that play Quad City Little League. Now they're ninth graders, and we're going to say, you're playing varsity. And you throw them to the wolves. And it's very discouraging. The level between JV and varsity is huge. So that's an issue. But then also, we played Hackett last year, and we had better overall players, but they had a dominant pitcher, a pretty good pitcher, and they beat us in the doubleheader. We don't have the double pitching yet. They do. And so that is one nice thing that it allows our team to play defense and have a chance. So, that's definitely an opportunity. And then the number 4 competition, if we do get a lot of girls, they have to compete for their playing time. No more, I can't come to practice today, I have to babysit. And we've been in a position where we need them so bad. What do you say? Hey, see you at the game tomorrow, and they show up and they play. So the competition is good. I'm telling you. The obstacles, number 1, the communication coordination, things like if there's a rain out last minute and we're canceling the game, but we're still going to practice, you can imagine what those could create issues, where we're going to practice, that kind of stuff. And then, there's probably no escaping. There's going to be somebody from GA or Hackett that's daughter has been, let's say, the shortstop, and the shortstop in the other school takes your position. It's going to happen. And dealing with that, the good thing is there'll be another spot where we'll probably play more, most likely it's may not be shortstop. And then another 4 I put down participation fees. I don't know how we handle this. We charge participation fees, so I don't know.
So I have a question on all of it, including participation fees.
Have you reached out?
Have you reached out to, so there's a lot of the other small schools around us, Climax Scotts and Dalton Kellogg, they do this a lot. Have you reached out to them to see what they do that works well and what doesn't work well and how they handle some of these obstacles?
Yes, I did. Climax Scotts. And a week and a half ago, Tyler Lang is the new AD. Kevin's the former AD that's still involved. Tyler never responded. Kevin responded, said, I'd love to talk to you. I'll call you tomorrow. He never called. So I'm still waiting. So I'm going to take it for an answer.
And Mike Mullen might be it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I
They do
didn't
that
realize
often.
they do in was it golf or just,
They do for soccer. They do. I don't know about golf. They do a lot with Martin.
Yeah.
As you know.
yeah, I was thinking of just specifically softball. That's why I thought
Oh,
Scott.
yeah.
Because they've been doing it with Better Creek City.
But they do a lot of co-op to make sure that they can offer other sports to their students.
We will be very similar, I think, to Climax Scouts because they do it with St. Phil. And Climax Scouts is the whole school. They wear their uniforms and the kids come to them. So it'll be very similar to hopefully other boys. Yeah, other questions?
Sorry, to follow up with what Diana was saying, so if you were to approve this and then make different changes or suggestions or offerings, is that gonna come back to us, or is our approval gonna hold?
Yep, I would send it to Wendy,
So
and
this
then I guess that's when you guys would actually sign off on the application that goes in SSA by November 2nd.
Okay.
So if they came back and said, hey, we want 50-50 practice, I'll relay that, and then you guys get that information, and then if that's that's a deal breaker.
So this will be like a preliminary approval until we hear back from them.
Yeah, the application will have to, I'm assuming you have to sign the application.
We've got transportation for away events, correct? So they're gonna provide their own transportation to the event.
So I asked that, so we go to a game, and he said, I'm sure our parents will just drive our kids over there and then we'll meet there at that event. Because I think if we went into summer trips, it'd be maybe make sense for us to pick them up along the way. And I'm sure there's liability, you can check into that, have the students from another school on our buses. You can get a rider for that, because if we're going right by them.
So how Dalton Kellogg handles it, they're the home school, they're the host school, and they co-op with Martin. And the Martin kids have to find their way to Dalton Kellogg to get on the bus. So they just drive over, get on the bus, and go to the game.
And that, the baseball, softball, we have days we're leaving at 2:30.
So they probably get out a little earlier,
Real early, so.
especially with our new schedules.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mike. Yep, Mike, and I think you can go, and if you have follow-up questions, they'll let us know.
Okay.
All right?
All right, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you so much.
See you.
Okay, next up under business items for discussion is the bond bids.
Glad we were second on the agenda. This is just-in-time delivery tonight.
Working all day.
I'm working on it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
We'll be passing out 3 documents. I don't know what you have on top. But the first thing I thought we'd go over would be the primary. So if you pull that one, it says Galesburg-Augusta School Primary Addition and Remodeling. This is a summary of that specific project and budget allocations and how bids came out. So I'll walk you through the first page. The bids that we got on last Wednesday. Well, let me back up just a little bit. As all of you know, we bid the projects, both the stadium and the primary at the same time. We bid those last Wednesday, and we had good turnout. I would say typical turnout that we're seeing today. We didn't have as good a turnout as we would like to see based on past history of the market. Right now, people are busy. So we didn't get as many bids in each category as we would have liked to have seen, but we got really good contractors. So we're happy with that. And so we are prepared to make an award recommendation on both projects. We did not receive bids for landscape. We did not receive bids for metal panels. And we only received 1 bid on the turf. So we, on the day of the bid.
Sorry, I thought you were.
Okay. So we decided that day that we would rebid those first 2, metal panel and landscape, and that we would extend the due date for the turf. because we knew there were turf contractors out there that would be giving us some pricing. So that was open today at 2 o'clock, and that's why we came flying in at the last minute, because we were on the phone with Wendy reviewing everything right before this and getting everything ready to come to you tonight. Let me just go through, I guess, what we're going to do today, and that is we need the board to authorize on each project the overall budget. And I'll go through this in a little more detail. There are still some things lingering out there that we have to talk about and decide on. But once we know this budget has been approved and the contractors that are listed on the following pages are approved, we can begin the process of organizing the project to get started. We can issue contracts for the subcontractors, so on and so forth. So it's very timely that we get this done as soon as we can, knowing that we do have some flexibility on some of the questions you may have to answer those later or to have further discussion about them. There's still some open-ended items. One of the big things we're going to talk about tonight, and I'll get to that in just a minute, is whether there's SHRP or not. How would we fund it? We have some information on that, and we have some information on really where we are in the market as far as your bond issue. When we planned this bond issue many, many moons ago, pre-pandemic, interest rates were at an all-time low, basically Zippo, and so we didn't anticipate additional dollars flowing to the school district. That has changed. With the inflation, we've seen a significant increase in costs, which we're all familiar with. But at the same time, the school district has benefited on the other end and has received better pricing when we sold the bonds, and we anticipate a significant amount of money flowing to the district for the bond issue, to be used for the bond issue from interest earnings. So that is a good thing, and that money is there for us to use to help offset some of the cost increases that we have experienced. So put that in the back of your mind, because we're going to see some numbers in a few minutes that you're not going to like, but we'll talk further about that, okay? So let me just walk you through the bid package 1 on the primary. The first sheet is really a summary of the overall cost and what we're asking you to approve us to move forward with. At the top, subcontractor bid day, the 2.627576, is those costs after we met with the contractors, they got the bid, we met with the contractors, we reviewed any potential savings, we reviewed their scope of work, made sure that everything was buttoned up tight. That's the number where we sit as of today with the subcontractors. We do have some allowances listed below there that we set aside for things that may come up or that may not have been covered in the bid categories, just to make sure we have those things set aside. The biggest of which is $45,000. That will allow us to address asbestos abatement and removal in the primary in the areas of the building that we are going to be working in. It does not cover the whole building, but that would allow us to get those portions of the project abated during the summer while we're building the addition, and then when we go in to do the remodeling, we know that part of the school is safe for us to work in.
Age of that building?
Pardon me?
There was asbestos used in the building of that building?
That's our understanding, yeah. And that is not surprising given the age of the building.
We
The
do
60s and 70s were very...
We do have an asbestos report as well for the building, so we do know what areas have been abated already or that are tested.
And that brings up a good point, Jeff, for me to make, is that all of these numbers are allowances. We don't know how much they're going to cost, but they're based on what we know today, and we believe they'll be adequate. If they're not, we'll have to pull from contingency to cover those costs. And if they're over what we need, the money just goes back to the district for other projects. So those are set aside to make sure we have some things allocated to cover. So that makes the total cost of the work $2,701,076. Below that, we have general conditions, which are things necessary for the project execution that support all of the contractors on the job site. We don't ask them all to provide porta toilets or job site fencing, that's something that we contract for out with other subs, and they will come in. And that, again, is essentially an allowance where if we don't need as much because we're able to get done sooner or whatever, that $250,000, whatever is left, would flow back to projects. And the same holds true for construction contingency and owner contingency. Project contingency is construction contingency is used for unforeseen conditions that do come up during the course of construction that we didn't, the architect didn't find, the engineers didn't plan on, we didn't know. Most common in this type of project would be things underground that we simply can't see. So we do have contingency set aside for that. And as we move through the project, we can reduce that contingency as time goes on because there's less and less opportunity for things to come up. The owner contingency is set aside for you as a school district to say, hey, we didn't think of this when we were planning it all out. So we want to use some of those dollars to get those things straightened out. So that's about $515,000 for a total construction cost of $3,216,172, which equates back to the bond issue, putting us about just shy of $100,000 under the original budget that we set up for the bond issue. So we are asking for the board to approve that $3,216,000 tonight. The following pages goes category by category. The category name is on the left, the apparent low bidder in the center, the proposed contract value for that contractor, and then we added some notes for you to read through. I won't go through each one of those things, but just to give you an idea of what would be included in that category. A few things to note. We did put some things on hold that we feel we can add back in at later dates. ADA bathroom, for instance, we may wait and see if the district gets some funding grants for that. If they don't, we'll move forward with it and add that cost back into the project. Let's see, what other ones? There's just a couple of them in here that were
Aluminum glaze or glass and glazing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's
Framing
all
option
the
was
exterior doors, hardware glazing. So,
Then you had something about concrete too, site concrete. Your large patio not accepted at this time?
we did not accept the large patio at this time. And the reason we said, let's keep the budget down, we can always add that in at any time between now and the time we're putting the plaza in. We can always add it in later. We have the value, and they're committed to that value. I think it was $2,500. It's not a big ticket item, but we could add that back in later. Okay? So we have a running track of all of those things. Did I miss anything? Any other questions on that? I'm happy to answer any questions along the way, but I'll go to the next project, and then I have another sheet to give you a summary. If you want to look at the next packet is the stadium. This is the summary that includes the cost for the church. We had to pick one or the other. We picked this one because we feel strongly that we can, that's going to be a little clearer for you to see on the next few pages. So on that bid day, we again had some metal panels, landscaping that did not show up, and then the field turf. So we rebid those sections today. Those numbers were incorporated. We have a total bid cost of $4,822,911 for the subcontractors. We have some set aside monies for tap fees. Because we didn't have a landscape bid, that was something I didn't mention on last. We do have allowances in there for landscaping. And what we decided to do on the stadium is that we're going to rebid this project when we did the multi-purpose room, because it makes sense. We could potentially have the same contractor involved in that work on the site. So that really made a lot of sense to us. So we'll rebid that in the spring. So that gives us a total cost of work of 4.912. And then our general conditions, barricades, construction support activities, that's $288,941. We have a contingency for construction allowance of $225,000 and an owner contingency of $60,000. So that brings our project value to $5,486,852 with the full turf included. The subsequent sheets after that are, again, all of the low bidders that we're recommending for award and the associated notes aside from that. Any questions on that right off the top of your head? All right.
Just a second, will you?
That's
You
okay.
wanna take a quick cruiser? Because I found something.
It's a lot. Would you like me to walk down the list? Or?
Just a quick question.
I'm happy to.
So I have a
Yeah.
so I have a question on. So you say low bidder, and maybe I missed this, but low bidder, apparent bidder. I guess my question is like, did you always go with a low bidder? So if you know Johnny is the low bidder, but Johnny doesn't, traditionally be on time or produce the quality of work. Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Yeah. The board, the school district is not obligated to take the lowest bidder. It's our job to sort through the bidders and help you understand who the best bidders are. The good thing for, in this case, was that all of the low bidders are people that we feel very comfortable with, that we've worked with before. There might be a couple in there that other people we checked on that were smaller contractors, but for the most part, 95% of the contractors are all top-notch school contractors.
There's some of them you've done a lot of work with.
Yes,
For
most
all
of them. Yeah, we've multiple jobs. One of the things that we do in the process is we not only take their bids, but we also require a qualifications package be submitted by all contractors. If it's a contractor we've worked with many times before, we don't expect as much information from them because we've already approved them, but we check references, we check past history, we go through all that, we check references. We also have financial information, audited financial statements if they have them. Those are submitted to our CFO who reviews those and approves those and tracks that. So we know they're in good financial standing. We check the references for any work that they've done, so on and so forth. That's really what we dig into during the post-bid process. And there might be some finalization of that happening right now, but all of these folks are.
And everyone was low bidder.
Yes, and they're all over.
They all wound up being low bidders.
Okay.
So you don't have that when someone shows up. Hey, I was low bidder and you didn't hire me. You don't have that.
And referencing the turf, it's actually quite a bit lower than we projected previously, correct? That's been seeing, or is there other parts that I'm not seeing that's not incorporated in the low bid?
The turf bid came in a little bit less than what we thought. But the turf number that we were presenting when I came down to the board meeting, and what you'll see on the next sheet, is higher because what we did was we pulled, if you put turf in, there are other things that have to happen to the stadium to do that. And that's in the bigger number.
Okay,
The turf number is less.
fair enough. Fair enough.
There's not a description on there. It should just say furnish and install turf as
That's what I
the
was
turf
They're
carpet.
the guys who bring the
only.
carpet in and
Yeah.
lay it
They
all
come in
out.
when it's pretty much done and they roll the carpet and do their thing and make it look pretty and
Fair enough.
all the tough work.
And as you would expect, Shaw, who's one of the biggest carpet manufacturer in the country, is providing the turf.
Any other questions? questions for Mitch?
Can I ask one quick question, just double check again? Bleachers is for 1,000, correct?
The what? I'm
For
sorry.
bleachers, it's for 1,000
Seating.
seats.
Is that the seating that we have here? I don't.
Yeah, on both sides, yes.
Yeah.
I think it was.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah,
Both
yeah.
sides. Okay.
And the rest.
And we can add on later to those still.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, just remind them how we can add on, what we have to do that.
Restrooms. Correct, but we can
Yeah.
put in a levy for.
So as part of our submission, is there's the travel distance from there, and it's 500 feet.
Okay.
So we're turning those documents in to make sure that that is shown and dictated on the drawings,
Okay.
so that you can use this building for some of that
Additional.
additional use.
Okay.
And the door that would get moved is the one that's farthest. It's not where the locker rooms are, but it's over custodial units that are probably moved.
And I should clarify that the response from the state came back that they just want to see that, if that's exactly what we're going to use as that criteria.
And then they would approve from there. Very good.
Just a quick question, for number 105. Sorry, for number 105. Bingo. I'm just kidding. So I do know that likely that our grant for our early childhood can pay the 43.5. I'm assuming though, this is on the primary. Yep. Obviously, we would still use the contractor, and I think we talked before that then the grant could just reimburse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very common for districts to find other funding sources. We would use the bond funds to pay the contractor, and then we would reimburse the bond fund account with whatever funds come in at whatever time.
And
And
one
we'll
of
track all of that for you.
Yeah. Yep. We'll have a budget soon. The other thing is on asphalt paving. Can you remind me? Is that just going on top, or did we decide to go the couple inches down and make the curve? Do you remember, Dean? We talked about that.
On
I
the
think,
elementary.
on the primary
Primary
school
school.
back. Do you remember
I'm gonna
that?
have to look that up, because yeah, that's part of, I don't think that was accepted at the time.
Okay. We can talk
I'll
about
have to
that
take a
too,
look
as
at
far
that.
as.
I have my computer, I can open that up.
All right.
That's
Thanks.
awesome.
Yeah, why don't you?
You had a good, I thought I had it memorized.
Mitch, you want to share
The other.
the per seat cost that came in though from the bid that was different from what you thought?
Per seat.
And the bleachers,
Oh, the bleachers.
from what we were told a few months ago?
Yeah, I wasn't on, I didn't hear that.
Okay.
See,
Yeah, they bid if you want additional seats, it's $275 a seat. When earlier, we were told 500.
yeah, the price is coming way down on aluminum
So it's almost
bleachers and
50%. Was to 6%.
timing to get it too.
But the problem is restrooms then, correct, we have to approve it.
Yeah, I mean, we'll have to play around with that a little bit as we move forward, but, you know, sometimes districts, if that's an issue, to do it later, have to move on.
Like if there was some contingency funds left over or something and you felt
Or
like
some
that
more.
was important.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so we'll talk through all of those things as time goes on and we realize where we sit with money and prioritization.
Not having Philip here, I do have just kind of a side note, and it came up last weekend at the MASB in regards to interest earnings and or the savings. There is an opportunity or an obligation maybe that if we make too much money on those bonds, that we have to pay arbitrage to the federal government.
I asked Philip and he said no, but I can check again.
I don't think that you're gonna be anywhere near that.
I asked
That's
Philip.
I don't know, you know, it all depends on what those numbers are, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
if you earn too much more because you
I don't know what the-
invested those bond monies,
That's a good question, Jeff. I don't believe you're anywhere near
Okay.
that
I think we're
threshold.
talking the big bonds.
It's big.
So I asked Philip very specifically about the amount we're supposed to be getting, and he said,
okay.
okay.
I just know.
Back in the old days, you know, that was so common that we would plan our bond issues around that interest. So you could actually drop your bond issue amount down because you knew going into it that you'd have $1 million or $1.5 million in interest. So we weren't able to do that. But it's nice that we're getting, I'll say, an added value from helps offset some of these price
Yeah, it
increases.
just offsets the supply chain issues and increased
Everything
prices.
else. So, yes. I can
It's a learning thing. I know you can hear me, but, so I maybe heard this incorrectly. As far as the food service equipment, does that include anything we need to run? Because we can't bring over what we currently have at Masco for concessions. Correct. So does this food service include everything we'll need to run our concession stand efficiently? As far as hot dog rollers or whatever that.
I believe it does, but I'm going to look at our architect, and I think it does.
When you say I didn't hear.
Is it everything one would hope? No, but does it allow us to do what we're currently doing? Yes.
And the other thing I would say is the Coke products are going to give you a couple of the coolers that are going to be put into place there. So those aren't being purchased because they give those to you so then you use their product.
Okay. My concern was just that things would not be, we couldn't do what we were currently doing,
No,
but we'll
it's
be able
gonna
to function
way-
the same as what we're doing now.
way
Okay,
better, way better.
I misunderstood that in
Well,
previous
originally it
meetings.
wasn't. Well, commercial equipment, kind of commercially, so it's
Well, that's what I
really-
thought.
Yeah, it's gonna be really
Okay,
nice.
that's why I was asking.
You were right.
I did hear that correctly.
You are.
Thank you, Diana.
Did we modify the ice machine? Did that get in there or no? Do you remember, Dean or
It
Scott?
was not modified. No,
Okay.
It's still full
Okay.
size. Yep.
We talked about whether we needed as big a one as we did, so, okay.
What is the
Huh?
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, but this one
This
is,
one, this is, you're going to do ice cream.
it was enough ice to, yeah. That's okay, we can. All right.
Okay. Any other questions on those two documents? If you want to look at the last single-page document, this kind of summarizes both projects and financially where we sit today. First column on the right side of the sheet, first column is bond budget. Second column is where we sit. We actually have two other columns that we had in here. It was getting confusing, so we had all the other budgets in there. But I would say, we tracked really nicely against what we were dealing with. The architect did a really nice job of trying to get the budget in line, and so we've been successful in doing that, and feel pretty good about it. So if you look at the stadium, we're recommending the bid results at 4.243 compared to the budget, which was just under 4.2. We have an allowance included in there for $100,000 for the landscaping that was not bid. Primary addition, budget was $3 million, we came in at $2.7 million. Construction support, which is all of those support items, were included though in the numbers above originally in the bond application. Let's don't carry that because we don't know the specifics of the schedules. So now that's broken out. So that brings our trade cost total from $7.2 million in the budget to $7.4 million. And again, that $539,000, that's contingencies, it's everything. Whatever dollars aren't used flow back to the project. Down below that, the contingencies down below, I'm sorry, that's $550,000. Same thing, those two numbers are flexible numbers. Total package then is $8 million, puts us about $103,000 over the bond issue monies. We do have some additional savings from the bond issuance, attorney's fees, various other things of $281,000. So to illustrate where we are today, we said, well, let's take $103,000 of that, and that brings us back to balance with the bond issue amount. We then added on top of that the turf, which is $669,000 when you take the turf all the drainage, required extra work to prep for that field, it's $670,000. I think we had said it was going to be around $800,000. So we're exactly 669 over, and below that is some additional cost savings as well as interest earnings of just about 460,000. So we do have an additional $600,000 available for the school district for future use on the project. That would help offset the turf if the district chooses to do that. That will also more than likely create additional funds available for other projects. I guess that's the point of discussion. Is, where the board feels they are with this. Whether we use the turf, whether we're comfortable with that, or we don't. We can decide on the turf. I think we had told you as late as March, February. That's when we're going to be bidding the multi-purpose one. We really need to have that decision by then. If we had it today or up to the 1st of November, 5th of November, whatever that date was in November, any date in November, we're just saying if we know in November.
Well, and I'll add, because I learned this week,
Go ahead.
that if you were to decide tonight, we would be able to play home games next fall. Because by doing it tonight, it gets the process moving, the carpet gets made, and they would be able to get it installed, and we'd at least be able to play a couple home games towards the end of the season. I didn't know that until this week, so I just wanted to clarify that.
That's where I was kind of going, but then I thought maybe I shouldn't say that.
I know you were.
I hate to make that commitment, but we do feel it's possible. Right now, and I don't know if the board is aware, but right now we're in schematic design. We're in the design development now for the multi-purpose room. And at the conclusion of schematic design, we were about $500,000, $600,000 under the bond issue budget on that project. So, as the design develops, the budget numbers do tend to creep up, but there is going to be some additional dollars available from that project as well.
And we've talked about things like what might be created. So you can example of that. So this is a priority. If we were to get that permit for bleachers, then we could say that's a priority. If people were getting more equipment for the weightlifting, that could be a priority. So, but we generated ideas based on conversations with the team that has not been decided. We've talked about preliminarily, right? Maybe adding on a little more footage to the multi-purpose. That isn't going to work with that moment because we're just so expensive. But I think we're getting together somewhere in November.
Well, that's the date I was looking for. There is a meeting in November. I don't
know if I have it on my calendar yet, but for those of us who are involved in that, would be great.
So I have a quick question, and this goes back just because I didn't see it on here, so I don't know if I just missed it or not. Is there any funding in here for the equipment for track, or no?
Yeah.
There is. Okay, I just didn't see it. Okay.
Yeah, you should be able to, once we turn it over, you'll be able to rock and roll.
Including timing equipment?
Clocks.
The one thing that, sorry, I should say this, the one thing in order to, we did look for some savings in different places. So as Mitch talked about, like the extra concrete around the primary school over there, it's something we can add on later. Similarly, we took out the $10,500 for play clocks, knowing that if things come in better, we can add them. But I just wanted you to know we tried to look for some simple things that wouldn't diminish from the programming, but that was one thing because I know a lot of people have asked about that.
And that for that example does not include the prep for those clocks. It's just the clocks, and the clocks can be bought at any time. Right.
Preparation electronically.
We'll be ready for it.
This is going to be done. Just and we already have a donor for the event.
One of the things that was brought up was parking lot, there by the softball field, towards the softball, baseball, that area had gotten shrunk, correct?
Yeah. Not in half, but a little bit, I think.
Yeah, it wasn't.
Yeah, it got reduced.
Yeah, originally was
Have to go
90,
back.
maybe down to 50. Yeah. And we did add more handicap spacing because we really felt that between the softball, baseball, track, marching band, whatever might be out there, that we really wanted to be able to place them right next to the new sidewalk. So we added some more handicap parking for that new lot.
What did you say that date was that we would, like, the early date for turf, that would get it by next year to play? I thought you did strategically.
Maybe. Yeah, we could maybe do
Yeah,
it.
nobody gave me any other date other than that March one when we originally talked about it.
That would just be, we could wait and do it in, first of March, whatever, and still get it done, but it wouldn't be ready until the following. So we could still make that change and add the turf in March, but you're not going to have it next season at all.
It's not even a factor.
Because grass was like 2 years.
It's a 2 year.
Yeah.
You need two growing seasons.
Turf will get on a lot quicker.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
It's my understanding that what takes so long is actually building the carpet and the materials to get the carpet. So that's where you lose time if you wait. I
Yeah,
think
we
you guys
would-
just correct me if I.
No, you're exactly right. And right now, we would love to call the manufacturer and get them out as soon as we can. Because I know some districts did have problems this year getting their turf done in time because of that, those delays.
Usually they say always get it in by December so that you're good for the next year for football season, or whatever season. So you start backing that up and you got to get through the shop drawing phase and approvals and colors and all that, and that backs you up to that November date. So it's a lot of decisions to make.
It would be nice to get them on that field so much faster.
Okay, so I'm just going to say something here because I'm super excited. The thought of being able to be on that field that soon is really exciting.
The fact that we can afford turf is exciting.
And I want to add to that, this is probably an opportunity that we won't see again for a long time. And that's because of, the extra funds we earned through the coupons that we got when we sold the bonds, and also from the high interest rate. That's one of the things I think we really need to consider is that if we went with grass, and I'm not saying it's a bad decision, and then later down the road decided to go with a turf, and then we have to, cut it up, and there's a lot of cost to that because we just put in a turf. We're going to lose this interest, right? The economy is not going to be the same, and of course we found that out with our different elections, right? Is that the economy changed and now it's more expensive. The same is going to be true. I would not want to lead you on to think that this money will be there the way it is in terms of this interest earnings or how we sold the bonds. This is probably a one-time deal for GA.
We had our last Rocket game at Delton, and there are no bells and whistles in their bathrooms or stands, but their field was amazing. Like, it was beautiful. The kids were in awe. The parents in the stands. I was talking to my buddy, who's one of the directors over there, and he said putting that turf field in was like one of the best things that they could have done for their school and their community, because so many people have access to that all the time, be it band or baseball practice out there, track and field is on there, football, of course, soccer. And during the football season, then they're not, trying to protect the field for the games on Friday nights. And it's every time I've gone for baseball, I've always seen people out warming up on the field or exercising or just kind of enjoying it. And actually, in some more conversations with him, just talking about ideas, and he just really
hit the point that if we didn't go with turf, we're really just taking a step backwards, because that's where everyone is going. And I think if we have this opportunity and it looks like it's kind of exciting, very exciting actually. So.
I agree with everything Ben said. And I would just like to add, like, he sent us the video, when he sent us the video on injuries on turf versus grass. And I think that's also a huge benefit, is that you can really reduce serious injury. Yeah, everybody's, maybe not everybody, a lot of people will be disappointed if we don't go with turf.
And I agree. I think that it's exciting, and I'm excited that we have this opportunity. I am a little bit nervous. I thought we had until March. There are some questions that I still have about turf. And I'm not saying I don't want it, but I still have questions. And I know I keep hearing everybody's doing it. Everybody's doing it. I don't want to do it because everybody's doing it. I don't want to keep up with the Joneses. I want to do it because it's what is best for our kids. And I'm not saying I don't want it. Even if we did wait until March to decide, we still would be on that field a year earlier than we would if we went with grass. Same?
Yeah. The following season, maybe 23.
24. Okay.
And I don't think the other schools are doing it just because everybody's doing it. They're doing it because it is what's best for the kids and for the community. So, I mean,
Well, I'll just add, it's conversations I've had with administrators. I think one of the key things is that there's going to be more kids on this field than what we've ever had. We are also going to have larger track meets. There's just a more opportunity to have more kids. I do think that that's good for kids. But the other piece I think about is we need to, in order for us to offer the best programs to our kids, we need to grow our enrollment. And if we don't do it, I really worry that families will choose to maybe move in but not come here. We don't know that for sure. We do know that our high school numbers have not recovered. We know that this is where we lose kids. And so part of me thinks, is this the investment we need to make to put GA back on the map? And I do think that that's good for kids. So I don't think it's about keeping up with the Joneses, which is a very good point, and I do worry about that perception for sure.
Sorry, no, you're completely fine. Sorry. I really love the conversation we're having, and I want to add my personal input on when we looked into it and we were discussing carpet and is carpet added helpful, and they were talking about if it would be more beneficial. And so I personally did my own research as well, and there was a lot out there where they're showing that's not currently any different than what we have for using turf versus turf and carpet. So then going back to turf and the injuries differences between that and grass and the safety that it influenced between that and using proper equipment, their injuries were so much more reduced and less concussions, going down the train. If we can keep our kids safe and let them have fun at the same time, I feel like more and more people will participate. I'm super excited to do what's best for our children, and if we can let them have fun and keep them safe at the same time, I think that's a good choice. That's all I got.
it opens up the facilities too, I think, to be more marketable for hosting events, districts or band competitions or whatever, which is great for the school. So. And the community. If those people are coming into our little town and they're going to grab some gas and a hot dog. So.
Youth program.
And I'm not disagreeing with any of this. Mm-hmm. I'm just saying, I personally I thought we had a little bit more time to decide on turf, and I still have questions. I'm not saying I'm against it or necessarily for it yet, but I just still have questions, and if we can get those if I can get those questions answered, I would feel more comfortable making a decision then.
What questions do you have?
It's a lot of it is safety because I have talked to medical professionals that I know personally. And they said actually there are some different things from what you said. And
Yeah.
so I have questions. I'd like to do a little bit more research and I would feel better about that.
So one of the questions I have, which I know we talked about in previous discussions, but like super excited for the turf, but the maintenance. Have we truly? Are we gonna have extra turf in case we need to cut some up? Are we? If we got to cut out a chunk of carpet, are we? Is our facilities department, are we prepared to do those repairs, the raking, like just making sure that we're thinking through that as well, versus like we got turf and then it looks like crap because we're not maintaining it, or we have to throw equipment, or you know what I mean, stuff like that. So
We have talked to Frank, and yes, he wants turf, because there will be some easier maintenance. But Dean, can you also talk about, yeah.
I'd like to talk about the maintenance.
Yes, thank you.
That's one of the main reasons that districts have started to utilize. Both the cost became more aligned with what people could afford, but it's easier to maintain a turf that is artificial versus a grass turf. In the bid sets, the district will receive a rake that goes on behind the tractor, and that is what's used to rake the cushioning material. Okay, and that is only done periodically. There's no mowing that needs to be done. There's no fertilization. There's no worry about running damage to the grass. So there's a lot less. There's more savings in maintenance and personnel costs
I think what
than
we
you might
should-
think.
Because we got warranty on the product too, as far as if the product does not,
Yeah.
it does need to be.
You will also get some, yes, and you will also get some additional bags of material for the granules. And then if there is any damage to the turf, which is pretty unusual, the manufacturer will come out and sew that up or whatever. But it's very often.
When we talked to Otsego, they said as long as you're raking it, as often as you need to, which, during football season, it depends on how many games you have at home. If we are ultimately able to have a soccer team, and that would be true. So that if you do the suggested maintenance, you're going to have a healthy turf for 14, 15 years.
14, 15 life expectancy.
We did a walkthrough 4 or 5 facilities, and all of them, Dalton was one of them, Otsego, as Wendy said, is the benefit is you get a lot more people utilizing it. So it's not just football, it's soccer, it's baseball, it's band, it's all these other track, everyone. So you get such a plethora of different people. Plus you get the rocket football, you get the younger kids that can do different activities with the school, the younger schools. But you can redo that field and just rake it and not have to re-sod or re-patch or water it, grass, all that stuff. And the moisture and the rain doesn't defer from that, because even during your activities when it's raining, it's not going to be like you can stay off it. So I think from a maintenance standpoint, that's a benefit too, because it's just a matter of raking it. But the amount of people on it doesn't have to be limited.
We've had this conversation, it must have been in the subcommittees, I think. It's come up a lot. And it's a very good question, a good point. But the one thing that I took away from the majority of those conversations was the amount of money that you're saving every year on the fertilizer and watering and the mowing and all that stuff. Essentially pays close to itself every 14 or 15 years when it's time for... Yeah, and that was kind of the same thing I was told from Delton, that so they almost it's more lucrative to them to have the turf versus the grass field. So
The best thing you can do is set aside those costs, save for it, and you have some money to pay for the returfing. And returfing is less expensive than putting it in the first place. You don't have all the drains and everything else. Just pick it up, put down the new stuff. So pretty straightforward.
I can just take a minute, if it's okay, to give you some more experiential time or anecdotal comments. I'm not a turf rep, and I'm not the architect or but I have a lot of experience, not only with coaching, but with the turf fields. And we tracked it the first few years we put it in, and that's been, 15 years ago. And there really weren't more injuries. And that's going on now at that particular field for 15 years. The concussions that happen in football are a lot more the kids and the football NFL guys doing this with their heads. And it's not the head hitting the turf or anything like that. It's the collisions we're having. That kids being faster, bigger, and running into each other in an unsafe way. You know, but I'm just saying that I've been working with you guys for quite a few years now too, and pride was one of the things that you had as a goal, or you talked about doing something like that. And through my experience again at Vicksburg and the facilities that were put in there, and then of course you know I've had a lot to do with the facilities in that Seagull. Pride does come up in those towns when other schools come to play there. Well, you saw at Delton, I've already heard about Delton too, from the United kids, you know, that played football on Delton's field this year. And that I think was a big step for Delton to do that. And of course, it'd be a big step here too. But I'm just going from my experience in a few districts where I worked that happened. People did say, this is pretty nice for our kids. And when they hear the visiting people say it, they walk away going, yeah. Anyway, I'm just trying to reference it to some of the things you're facing here, not just building, you know, something, but trying to attract.
Another way to build them up.
And the pride, yeah.
Well, the pride is huge. I mean, the pride is going to come out with the new stadium, but it's real grassroots.
Yeah, don't forget that track. That was a big thing for 20 years.
Track, yeah.
And that's going to look great no matter which way you go on the inside, the infield. But you're going to have a track out there with kids. And they'll be using the end zones, the high jump. Approach area is right there, and it's going to have turf around it, whether it's grass or artificial. And most of the people said the artificial works best around that if you go that route, because they can sit on that all the time too, and they don't have to worry about when it's raining or something that high jump kids and the spectators, kids watch. Anyway, told you that's some anecdotal info, that's plenty.
So I have just a couple things. I'm better emotional now. Just thinking about having this, it like became real when you put a date to it. So sorry, but you know, just thinking about my kid who, you know, has already gone through school. He's gone by, but playing at Maskell Field and then the locker rooms and what they had there, and the embarrassment kids had that played at that facility, and the other teams coming in and saying stuff about the facilities that they had, and the pride about being able to have a facility and something to really be proud of. And, you know, thinking about kids and being able to use it at different times. So my son did a specialized position, I guess you'd say. So he had to go to Gull Lake every week to be able to use their field because he couldn't practice on our field. And going there to see the field and being able to use it and how great it was. But we could do more of that with, you know, more kids being able to be out there, kickers, different things, you know, using the same spots over and over again on a grass field just isn't a great thing. Track. So this weekend we're at MASB conference and we had these little buttons and it was so it could prompt people to ask you a question. Mine was ask me about, and I put track on it. And people are like, track? And I said, yeah. I said, we've not had a track meet in over 20 years, and we're going to have a track. And, you know, just the coming to the facility, seeing a great facility, having the turf where, you know, I think so many people are going to be able to use it for so many different things. You know, I was talking to a girl and she said she thinks her freshman year was the last time they had a track meet, and she graduated in 2005. So by the time we have it, you know, it'll be close to, you know, 25 years, or, well, about a little over 23. But yeah, I mean, it's just, to me, it's the excitement, and you putting a date on it just made it so real tonight, and it's very exciting.
I have two questions. The video that Wendy sent us compared 3 different deaths, or I'm not sure how they described that. And that made a huge difference in the injuries being less or more.
One of them was on the pad.
One was with a pad, and then the other 2 were different. Yep. So, are we going with the one that reduced injury, or are we going with the one that, do we know? That would be my question.
Did we go middle of the road theme?
I think so. I'd have to.
We didn't go to the lowest. Middle of the road.
I'm only
Shot pad,
smiling
we did
because
not.
I've worked on this a lot. Seriously. And the makeup of the infill, which is the sand and the rubber, the grit, that's what you're talking about now, is the depth of that.
Yes.
Because a lot of the fields do not have shot pads that were built before either. But that infill is critical, and when we stood on fields, you can tell a difference on how the moves with your feet, so the kids, and that's where you have more of that silica sand. And the ones that are all rubber are mostly rubber and a little bit of sand. And the videos I've seen in the past, but I know from some of the work, you want to try to get it as thick as you can and still, you know, afford it, but that should be something that is a priority.
Yes.
And I think we've talked about the actual mix of it too, from Vicksburg, and I'd see them that to try to match what they know is it's this safety feature in the part about your feet and traction. And, so you're right on this stuff. You're right on target.
And then I have a question for you. You mentioned that you tracked injuries and you said specifically, you mentioned concussion. Did you also track lower extremity injuries, or was it strictly concussion related?
No, it was just injuries, period.
In general.
And there might have been one leg injury I can remember that maybe had to have surgery or a doctor, but that was, you know, we had turf there for half a dozen years or more before I retired. And then we did check with the AD since then, and he still confirmed that. Has not seen injuries, etc. Somebody asked that question. And you can get more data on that too from Vicksburg or Delton or Plainville.
And I think that's where that's my point again. I am not disagreeing with any of you. I want turf. I think it's great. I just still have concerns about safety.
Well, I still think about Drew's injury to his leg, which breaks my heart because that never should have happened. Oh yeah. But that was, I mean, specifically from just a terrible grass field in a muddy environment. You know, and you definitely eliminate that risk with turf. So.
Yeah, that ended his high school career and college career.
I think one thing to choose about the turf typically offers you an opportunity to wear a less cleated shoe, which allows your foot to move and slide more natural. You won't get on a grass turf, you will wear longer cleated shoes, which have create more of a stumbling opportunity.
I'm glad you brought that up, Jeff, because that's another question I have. Does this mean that our kids, our players, have to purchase 2 different pairs of shoes?
No.
No? Okay.
You can get specific cleats that are longer for grass or mud, but you don't
But
need
it's
it.
not necessary.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, there's an inherent risk when you step out onto the football field, no matter what field you're playing on. But I do, if we can do all measures to mitigate risk to our kids,
I've noticed it in soccer too. Just coaching soccer and being on the turf versus you do some of those ankles where they catch potholes and ruts in the grass that cause issues because you have a true field that doesn't have those pockets. I don't have numbers in tracking. I know with my daughter, she would have more ankle injuries on grass than she would turf.
Okay, I guess I'm gonna try probably see if we're ready to wrap up. Anybody has any more questions, or if we're ready to move on to decision?
Discussion. So we said if we do approve the turf now, our goal would be playing some games.
In 23.
Next year.
And this is the next year, if we approve it.
Listed.
Yeah, that will ensure that we get it in time and a half.
No backstops on the list.
The list of the so-called specs that we've got anticipated to be covered under lease bid contracts versus any changes or enhancements. Those enhancements all come or are in a change order, that because we're recognizing that we've got this windfall or whatever. That those all come to the board, correct? For decisions. And
Yeah, I don't, every board is a little different, but sometimes there's a threshold, that we'll have some things that we definitely want to be able to approve. They're lower dollar amounts so that the project keeps moving forward. But for significant change orders, yes, those will all come to be approved by the board.
So what I'm thinking about, Jeff, is when I first got here, we were going to keep a computer lab. That we were getting everybody a computer. We were going to have all these carts, and there was going to be another computer lab. So we did make a change order where that turned into more of an open room, comfy furniture. That wasn't something, I don't believe, came to the board. That was not under that. That was actually going to be cheaper than more expensive because we weren't putting in all those computers. So I don't know what the threshold is, but we can talk about that.
We need to definitely decide where that is, please.
And yes, and we will also suggest a steering committee for the bond once we start construction, and that would normally there would go 2 to 3 board members on the steering committee. So that group will be, every 2 weeks we'll have what we call an OACM meeting, which is Owner Architect Construction Manager meeting, and that would include whoever's on that committee. And so you'll be abreast as to all the issues that come up, everything that's going on. Communication is very important. We'll make sure you're over-communicating the best we can.
Okay, so we'll move on to business items for decision. A, the approval of cooperative softball with packet. I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the cooperative softball program agreement as presented.
I'll support.
Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Coven,
Yes.
Overgard,
Yes.
Reed,
Yes.
Walker,
Yes.
Yes.
Simmons,
Yes.
Riverside. Yes.
Motion carries 7-0. Okay. So what Wendy just brought up, so next up under business items for decision is the approval of bond bids. We didn't have the full total at the time that the board action request form was done. So when you make a motion, I think I'm going to give 2 recommendations here, depending on where we want to move forward. First one is the total, which is the total with plus turf or the total without turf. Okay, so I guess when you look at that, when I ask for a motion, make a motion whether it's with turf or without, and then the total price.
Let me just verify, Mitch, it's the $8,599,000.
Yes, if you want to do that, that is fine, or you could just vote on the 2 individual packets as opposed to the total. It's fine for us too. That way it gives your board members an opportunity to vote for each one of them separately.
Okay. So we're going to do 2 board action requests. So we'll do a modified one. So the one you have, I'm guessing, so a motion to approve, we'll just put the primary school and bids as presented. And that package total then would be?
Bid amount $3,216,172.
You got it. Does that make sense?
Yep.
And then we'll move on to the next one, the stadium next. So, okay, so we'll go to, for somebody to make a motion for approval of bond bid for the primary school.
I would move that we approve the primary school bid of $3,216,172.
Support.
Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Overgard,
Yes.
Simmons,
Yes.
Lieberstein,
Yes.
Walker,
Yes.
Schuch,
Yes.
Reed,
Yes.
McCubbin.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0. So next up will be the business items for decision for the high school stadium. And I guess that will look, depending on how the motion is made, for the total cost with without turf and with turf. Could I have a motion, please?
I'll make a motion to approve the high school athletic field / stadium bid as presented in the amount of $8,599,675, which includes turf.
I'll support.
Wrong number.
No.
I'm interrupting. Sorry.
It's only
$5,486,852. 5,486,852.
So I'm sorry, $5,486,852.
I'll support.
Any discussion? Okay, roll call vote, please.
Overgard,
Yes.
Simmons,
No.
Lieberstein,
Yes.
Walker,
Yes.
Schuch,
Yes.
Reed,
Yes.
McCubbin.
yes.
Motion carries 6-1. Okay, next up under communications is board comments. Anybody that would like to say anything? I just want to say thank you to Olive Triangle for being here, or Tower Pinkster, yeah, both here, for the presentation tonight, giving us all the information, answering all of our questions, and I am very excited to move forward. So thank you.
Thank you. We're happy to be here, and it's an exciting time for Galesburg-Augusta. We are as excited as you are. It's been a long road getting here, and we're ready to go. Awesome.
Bring those up to me, guys.
Okay, next up under communications, superintendent update.
Yeah, so, I think it would be important, I'm gonna reach out to Mike Woodard and Coach Hadley. I mean, I know football is not the only team on that field, but I think, I know Coach Hadley has some experience. I know Mr. Woodard could do some, asking some questions around and hopefully get more information for Krista. And then the one thing that we'll have to talk about is what will we do with the older field, right? Because if we're going to save funds, we have to think about what we'll continue to keep. Like, for example, do we keep it watered or do we not keep it watered? Do we keep the concession stand with electricity, etc.? Those will be some discussions we have to have eventually, not right now. And then we sent out invitations to be printed for groundbreaking. And I heard today Bethany says we have 15 shovels, so that's pretty exciting. And then I asked a few board members to speak. Those will be on. And the principals will talk as well. And I think that's about it, just those two pieces. And I also appreciate Denny. I couldn't understand all of this without him. He's been absolutely critical for me, bringing his knowledge and experience, and sometimes having to step in for me. So thanks to all four of those fantastic people that are sitting in the audience.
Okay, meeting is adjourned at 7:26.